Your Excellency, President Goodluck Jonathan, Excellencies, heads of state and heads of government, and heads of delegations, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I'm honored to be here with you today on this momentous occasion. I want to thank you, President Jonathan, for extending an invitation to me personally to be here. I would like to express at the very outset our solidarity and admiration to the people of Nigeria, who for 100 years have been working hard to build, nurture, and protect the unity of this great African country. We are particularly conscious of Nigeria's immense contribution and sacrifices in the service of our continent. Africa is currently at a critical juncture with a variety of challenges and opportunities shaping our respective countries and regions. As a continent, we have outperformed expectations by our critics. Many of our countries have soared and surged both economically and socially. Yet, to all intents and purposes, despite the positive growth story we have achieved as a continent, Africa, and in particular the African people, are still faced with difficult times in the context of human security. Human security is a relatively new term in the realm of international discourse, but it is something we are all familiar with and understanding. It is a concept as defined as the security of human lives outside the traditional state-centered thinking of security, though it remains as the central objective of national and international security trajectories. Security, ladies and gentlemen, is no longer just about protecting territories or protecting individuals. As the late Mahbub al-Haq aptly put it, security of all the people everywhere, in their homes, in their jobs, in their streets, in their communities, in their environment. Indeed, human security is an important concept that cannot be ignored as a significant discourse in Africa's development agenda. It opens up new lines of analysis, allows new understanding, and gives voice to new actors. Its value added to the security field in that it focuses attention on human beings and integrates non-military mechanisms as means of security, and also focuses on downside risks that are usually taken for granted. These include the risk at the family level, at the community level, and eventually at the state level. Financial security to provide for our families is at the core of all our societies and communities. Providing shelter and comfort to our loved ones and community members is something that we all aspire to do. Ensuring the feeling of inclusiveness among our diverse social, economic, and political groupings, while making sure that we do not lose the hope and basic expectation that tomorrow will be better than yesterday, and the belief that with an equitable opportunity we can develop our lives if we work hard and aspire to great things, are essential prerequisite for both human security and physical security. It is when these fundamental needs are circumvented that we have problems and situations that append peace. When inequality persists and marginalization of groups occur, desperation sets in that causes people to act irrationally in order to give the human security they feel entitled to. The persistence of extreme poverty and the feeling of social exclusion for particular social groups, even in economies enjoying healthy growth rates, creates conditions of increased fragility. Human security has many distinct meanings and provides an umbrella for a variety of things. But fundamentally speaking, we cannot talk about human security in the absence of physical security. Without physical security, there can be no human security, and in the absence of both, we cannot have political and economic progress. One of the major criticisms of the impressive economic performance in Africa has been the lack of an inclusive growth. The 6 to 7% GDP that has been recorded by many of our countries has not benefited the masses, as people are made to be more and more aware of how much inequality exists and how much they aren't benefiting from the economic growth. Resentments and tensions start to rise. It is in this situation where you find we have political backlash and social unrest. It is the most dangerous when expectations are incredibly high, where people expect that their lives to be better than they were yesterday, when in reality their lives become worse. When a significant deficit exists between people's expectations and reality, that is when communities are at the most vulnerable. Frustration boils over because jobs are still to be had, youth unemployment rages on, development is stagnant and only concentrated in certain areas, and opportunities are lost. That to me is the crux where we are today, and where human security can be undermined. This is where we are most fragile, and this is where we need to engage vigorously in order to salvage the future of our children, our continent, and our people. All is not lost, however. There are many trends that we can use to our advantage and that can shape our future in a more positive trajectory. The vibrancy of our young people, where we really have a significant advantage over the rest of the world. Africa is the only continent where the youth population will significantly expand, and in 2035, Africa will have a larger working age population than India or China. This demonstrates the potential we have. The youth are not a ticking bomb that we are forced to see. They are an opportunity that we need to cultivate and empower so that they feel ingrained in our society. Creating college livelihood opportunities for young people is one of the most pressing challenges facing our continent. Above all, we need to make young people believe that tomorrow will be better, because if not, we'll then lose the raging battle with extremists and criminal enterprises that radicalize our youth. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize the issue of physical security again, because I think it's really important not to underestimate its impact. Terrorism continues to threaten our peace and stability, but so does internal conflict and violence, trafficking, and criminality. Also, financial volatility associated with rapid growth cross-border movements of money, job, and income insecurity due to global competition, pandemic diseases, forced international migration as a result of violent conflicts, political repression, poverty, and resource scarcity. As much as there has been essential focus on terrorism on the continent, we need also to pay attention to these threats that directly impact people's day-to-day lives. Perhaps the most effective way of reducing violence, as a recent report of the African Development Bank points out, is to tackle the underlying social and economic causes. Unfortunately, in a number of African countries, the very institutions that are supposed to safeguard the security of the people are the very institutions that are either corrupt, compromised, or at worst undermine the security of the people they are supposed to provide. This has to change. The latest Mo Ibrahim Foundation Index, the rule of law among many countries has been deteriorating, even in the context of improved economic performance and human development. The rule of law and personal safety in the continent has consistently declined, demonstrating a need to strengthen the institutions that try to safeguard these two categories. Personal safety and security have a far-reaching impact on all facets of society. It affects perceptions of doing business, and it affects how people live their lives. Violence is growing within nations, and threats to peace are more likely to be found at home than across borders. Conflicts are becoming increasingly fragmented, fought on smaller scale on peripheries of states, with more non-state actors involved, and lines between criminal and political violence blurred. Human trafficking across the continent continues to deteriorate, with no substantial efforts to curtailing it, to say nothing of drug trafficking, which has become not newsworthy lately, but has been a long-standing issue in many countries. As a continent, we need to understand these new trends and threats and be vigilant on how to anticipate them and prevent them. I believe this begins and ends with improving the livelihoods of those who are most vulnerable. Vulnerable people and communities are the ones who are most susceptible to the negative consequences of the enlarged criminal networks, armed violence, and civil wars. Each country in Africa has a role to play, and many of the conflicts and challenges we face today transcend borders. As we become more and more regionally integrated, the consequences of any internal strife will have a wide-reaching impact in neighboring societies. This is why human security in each individual country is no longer a problem of one single country, but a group of countries. Maintaining and improving human livelihoods is a national security challenge that all governments, civil society, private sector, individuals need to take seriously. And to effectively deal with this, a more cooperative and collaborative approach, either under our regional system or bilaterally, is necessary. Perhaps the best way forward, with Nigeria leading the way in West Africa, is to continue investing on regional and, where necessary, continental approaches through the African Union in solving conflicts. As we are seeing today, the greater the density of regional or intergovernmental agreements, mechanisms, and processes in which African states are involved, the greater their resilience will be. The more African states are anchored in structures of regional cooperation, the more resilient they are likely to be. I hope that this is something we can all collectively reflect on as we look ahead, so that we continue Africa's progress in the next 100 years. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for your attention.